First day of Champions League done for this week. My father had a saying once, and he said, when you start reinventing the wheel, that's just a means for you to jump off a cliff. Okay? And why do I say that? Because I'll start with PSG first. Because Luis Enrique decided to reinvent the wheel. Now, it sounds simplistic, but there was a necessity behind it, which Achraf Hakimi not playing, well, he had to shuffle his pieces a little bit. And in order to get that support, then, of course, Warren Zaire-Emery couldn't play on the right. There's a lot of things that changed in that lineup, but maybe too many in the sake of compensating. And in that compensation, it allowed Barcelona to play a little bit freer, maybe playing with a bit more pressure, and especially when they turned up the speed at Parc des Princes, things ended up being much different. Now, today, with the lineup he should have had in the first place, obviously he couldn't have it in the first leg, now let's be honest, it ends up being a completely different story. It ends up being one where we see a PSG that from the beginning, from the get-go, they started pressuring. Did it cost them early? Yes, it did, because Barcelona takes the lead. Rafinha being able to come through and score what seemed to be the goal that kind of capped things off. But goals change games, and so do sendings off. And that ends up being the case for Barcelona. Ronald Araujo, Barca fans, oh, it's unfair. No. PSG were better, period. And in that play, Ronald Araujo commits the foul. Dog so. It's outside of the area. Therefore, red card. He's gone. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you want to complain, go complain. Vaya llorar a la iglesia, as they say in Spanish. Go cry at the church. Go complain. Save the drama for your mama. That type of thing. It was not a penalty. Excuse me. It was not a bad call. It was a very good call, as a matter of fact, as the referee pulled out the red card, no doubt about it. And, of course, everything that ensued ends up being a byproduct of it, because not only do Barca lose one of their best defenders, they also lose one of their leaders on the pitch. And you saw the leadership going through. Great match by Vitinha. Of course, I have my notes here, so I wanted to make sure that... Great match by Vitinha, who played very well. Fabian Ruiz also had a very good match. The midfield ends up being... It's so trite to say it, but the midfield ends up being where all battles are won, and today was not the exception. Fabian Ruiz, Vitinha, Zaire-Emery, and when you start looking at that, Asensio, when he comes in later, he's not a midfielder necessarily, but he does help in the middle of the pitch in terms of his support. There were a lot of instances where PSG could have taken the lead, and eventually did. And they eventually never even relinquished it. They never looked back as soon as they took. It wasn't the best match for Kylian Mbappe now. It wasn't the best series for, but today he happened to be effective. He scores on a penalty kick, and he ends up scoring the goal that basically seals the deal. And for PSG, they just seem a more solid team this year. They seem like a more of a team this year. And as I've always said with this PSG project experiment, however you want to call it, that this is their measuring stick. And for Barca, this is their measuring stick as well. But, of course, they have another measuring stick that they have to deal with this coming weekend when they visit Real Madrid. So that ends up being maybe some consolation. Maybe not. Maybe they're going to go trophyless. Most likely they're going to go trophyless this year now. But PSG, and I said it last week on Sportsmax, this is their test. This was their final. This was what they had to fight for. And it was a team that seemed to lack focus and lacked composure in this match, unlike in the previous one. Yeah, they had moments where they lost their focus in Paris, yes. But today they completely lost the plot. The midfield, it was Gundogan, it was Pedri, it was Frankie de Jong. They didn't know where the roles were, how they rotated, how they moved from one another, how they were going back and forth, how they did a lot of things, and a lot of things that they ended up, doing wrong. And the midfield was just completely, I don't know if overruns the right word, it just seems harsh, but it for sure, it was a team that just was outplayed in that sector of the pitch and left the defense very exposed. Pau Cubarsí couldn't handle everything by himself. Íñigo Martinez comes in. And here's the other mistake. And I was thinking about that as the match progressed. Where was the play being established? Ball would come into the middle. Gundogan would turn around. He's surrounded by 3 or 4 players. He'd turn around. He has no one to pass the ball to. He loses it. PSG continue going forward. Frankie de Jong gets the ball. He tries to dribble through one, but there's a second and third coming in. There's no one to pass the ball to or play the ball off of. There were spaces all over that weren't being occupied. There were spaces that were being left unoccupied by the defense on the other end, and that caused a lot of problems for Barcelona in this match. Give a lot of credit to PSG. Give a lot of credit to Luis Enrique, like I said before, to understand not just to pressure, how to pressure, how and where to pressure Barcelona, which they did. And of course, having an extra man, that ends up being vital for them in terms of how this match ends up turning up. Araujo comes off, and it's not only the sending off of Ronald Araujo. Xavi also gets sent off. A couple of days ago, Xavi goes and talks about, well, I understand because footballers need to be asked to keep to keep their emotions in check and something along those lines. Well, you know what, Xavi? Coaches have to also keep their senses. The coaches also have to keep their wits, especially in very, very crucial moments. And in very, very crucial moments, Xavi so far has not been able to prove that he deserves to be mentioned as a Guardiola, as a Luis Enrique, as a Ancelotti, as a Jurgen Klopp, as whoever. He's still not there yet in that aspect. Does he understand football? He's a nice encyclopedia of football. But one thing is being an encyclopedia of football. Another thing is being able to apply and to make the necessary adjustments when your team needs them most in the most critical of moments and moments where you end up breaking down and knowing that if you lose, you end up getting eliminated in the Champions League. This is where he needs to really show his worth, and he's not going to be able to show his worth inside of the dressing room after he gets sent off. So there's that. Disappointing for Barcelona. For PSG, Hakimi shows a big difference, right? And not only Hakimi, everything that happened because of Hakimi not being there. Of course, Marquinhos playing at right back. Now he plays as a center back alongside Lucas Hernandez. More solid. Donnarumma, I think he only made one mistake. I'd said on Sportsmax earlier today that Barca. Actually, I thought Barcelona was going to win this match. They were winning this match, as a matter of fact. And I expected Donnarumma to make at least one or two mistakes. He made one. And I can't even attribute that one, to be honest with you. It would be unfair. Dembele, of course, scoring the equalizer. Barcola also had a very good... overall, PSG, everyone had a good match. I can't say perfect, but it was very close to it, especially after they went down a goal. And, of course, when they went a man up, then all of a sudden there was more space, and Barcelona just didn't know how to reoccupy and reshuffle things. Because, and I kind of left that point from the last time around, remember I was talking about Gundogan and where the ball was being played and how they were playing it out of the midfield? Well, when you're missing Lamine Yamal, as he's taken out and he's brought in, or you bring in Íñigo Martínez, I understand that, but maybe the substitution was elsewhere. Maybe the substitution was Pedri. Maybe the substitution was Frankie de Jong at that stage of the match, because you could bring Lamine Yamal back, drop him back, and of course play with Robert Lewandowski and Rafinha playing up top of what would be a 4-3-2. It would still remain a 4-3-2. And then, of course, you can make another substitution and bring in maybe another central defender at that point. Araujo ends up being you end up seeing him when he's absent, how important he is to Barcelona. And, of course, he commits the foul, he gets sent off, everything else. But the absence, the presence of him in that back line ends up being so valuable, or so invaluable in this particular case. So, again, a huge win for PSG. Bit of a revenge from that elimination back in 2017. A lot of things that end up kind of reverberating around Catalonia. Of course, I kidded around on social media saying, well, maybe Xavi's going to resign again. And most likely that is going to be the case, because Barcelona, this is what they are measured with. Now, is the team back? That's going to be an analysis that we'll have to look at maybe in a couple of weeks, to really look at this season coldly and see what they need and see what they were able to bring about. Joao Cancelo also with a poor match. He commits the penalty that ends up basically putting PSG in complete and utter control of the match, and it ends up being almost unattainable for Barcelona to be able to come back and get a victory. So, again, like I said, huge one for PSG. PSG played great. Luis Enrique simplified things. Luis Enrique played with what he has best, and Luis Enrique was able to execute better than Xavi at the end of the day. So, big win for PSG. Later on tonight, I'll have my reaction for Atletico Madrid and Borussia Dortmund, which ends up being a very disappointing result for Cholo Simeone's side. And again, him conceding and dropping back and doing things. Again, I don't want to leave too much off of that because that ends up being material for the other video. So make sure, you do the usuals here. You do the usuals. You know what I'm talking about. And make sure you spread the word too, man, because it's all about being able to do these videos and wanting to do them more frequently when I have a chance. Okay? Talk to you soon. Ciao.